Hello, I'm Marisa Barlas, Associate Director of Advancement, Gift Planning at York University. Thank you for joining us today for our special Life Skills series, Wills and Wealth seminars on the topic Shaping the Future through Retirement Planning and Wealth Building. As today's event is virtual and we're not all gathered in the same space, I recognize that the following land acknowledgement might not be for the territory that you're currently on. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located, which precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is home to many First Nation, Inuit, Métis community, and we acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. Since this event is virtual, we'd like to get to know our audience a bit better, and we will soon launch a quick poll. Today's first question is, how are you currently feeling about your financial well-being? And the answers are, I could use some help. I am meeting my commitments. I feel comfortable right now. I feel secure for the future. I'll give everyone a moment to respond. Thank you. And now there's our results. This is great. Thank you for your feedback. And now for our second poll question. The question is, what are you hoping to learn about in today's presentation? And so please select one answer. Is it budgeting and money management, money saving, investing money, getting out of debt, retirement, or estate planning? Perfect. And we'll soon tabulate the results. Excellent. Great to know. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. It's helpful for us and our speakers to gain a better understanding of who is in our audience and also their wealth planning expertise, so that it helps inform our discussion for today. If you should need help with the Zoom webinar, feel free to click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and you can enter your question and our staff will be ready to help you. That same Q&A button can be used to submit questions for our speaker to answer your questions during the question period, which will be at the end of today's presentation. The team will watch for your questions and will send them our way. And we hope to get to as many as we can during the presentation afterwards. Please do note that your questions and comments are visible to our speaker and the staff working behind the scenes. So we just ask that you keep your comments relevant and respectful. And now I'd like to warmly welcome our guest speaker of our webinar today, Don Levy. Don is a senior financial advisor, portfolio manager, and the managing director of Confida Wealth Team at Manulife Securities, Inc. He has been in the financial services industry for over 28 years, building long-term relationships with clients to help them achieve their financial goals. He is a seasoned financial advisor, and Don has developed a practice in retirement planning, estate planning, and portfolio management. He is also a fellow of the Canadian Securities Institute, having completed several professional designations, including Certified Financial Planner, Chartered Investment Manager, and Trust and Estate Practitioner. His investment principles are rooted in proven wealth creation strategies, and great client service is paramount and important to him. Don is an alumnus with a BA in political science from York University and a member of the York Advancing Black Students Program, and is a mentor for our Black LAMPS students in their fourth year of study. We are pleased that he is able to join us today as our speaker. Welcome, Don Levy.
Great. Thank you so much, Marisa, and for your kind introduction and your kind words. And we will get started on our presentation as we get our video all lined up. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and privilege, an honor and a privilege to be addressing you this afternoon as we speak on the subject of shaping the future through retirement planning and wealth building. So let's delve right into our presentation. In my many years of being a financial planner and a senior portfolio manager, I have spoken with thousands of individuals, met with hundreds of individuals and families, and trying to get a sense of what is important to them from an investment and financial planning perspective. And I have distilled this information down to what I call 3 universal wealth building objectives. So let's talk a little bit about these objectives. Asset preservation, growth maximization, and tax minimization. I would say these 3 topics are the #1 issues or concerns or needs that have come up out of the many discussions I've had over the years. Every individual or family that I've met with, the #1 concern for most investors is they work very hard for their money. They've been very disciplined in saving it, and they do not want to lose money when it comes to investing. So protection of their assets or preservation of their assets is of paramount importance to them. In fact, we regard the #1 rule of investing to be don't lose your capital. And the #2 rule of investing, never forget rule #1. So preservation of capital is very important to us. And so everything that we do is all built around protecting our clients' capital. Benjamin Graham, who authored a number of books and is considered to be one of the most authoritative voice in investing, wrote a book, Security Analysis. And in this book, Security Analysis, Ben Graham gave what is considered to be the classic definition of investing. As Ben Graham puts it, an investment operation is one which, upon thorough analysis, promises safety of principal and a satisfactory rate of return. Anything not meeting this requirement is speculative. So we can see from Ben Graham's very definition of investing, capital preservation is very important. Growth maximization. Everyone that we sit down with or speak to want to achieve as much growth as possible on their investment without taking undue risk. In fact, when we think of wealth, 2 of the biggest impediments to wealth are inflation and taxation. The only antidote to those 2 impediments is growth. And so growing our clients' capital is a big part of our objective. Let me illustrate the effect of inflation on an individual's retirement and on their retirement income and overall on their plan and strategy. Let's assume as a retiree, one needs $80,000 per year of income from their investment in order to pursue the lifestyle that they have in mind. In a 3% inflationary environment, a 3% annual inflationary environment, in 15 years, that retiree would need $124,637 to maintain the same purchasing power as $80,000 in today's dollar. Let me repeat that. A retiree needing $80,000 in today's dollar in 15 years will need close to $125,000 in order to maintain the same purchasing power if we have an annual rate of inflation of 3%. That means that retirement income needs to be 56% higher. Will someone's portfolio be able to generate 56% more in 15 years in order to provide the same degree of lifestyle? That is indeed the power of inflation. And that brings us to our third objective, and that is the objective of tax minimization. We talk about tax being one of the impediments to wealth creation. You cannot create wealth unless it is combined with a simultaneous attempt to minimize taxes. Tax minimization is, in fact, a key part of wealth creation. I like to use this example to, again, illustrate the impact of taxes on our investment. And so I'll use a couple of small numbers in terms of dollar figures, but a phenomenal rate of return just to be able to illustrate my point. Full disclosure, the rate of return that I'm going to talk about is likely unrealistic, probably very unrealistic, but I'll use it just to illustrate this point. Let's assume an investor have $1, and they could find an investment that can provide 100% return annually. So that investment is doubling every year. If that $1 is doubling every year for 20 years, at the end of 20 years, that dollar would grow to $1,048,000. If, however, you have a second investor who also starts off with $1 and could find an investment that can double every year, so that dollar is also growing at 100% per year, but that second investor had to pay taxes of 25% on the growth each year. So the first dollar that went to $2, that investor has to pay 25 cents of that dollar gain in taxes. That second investor doubling that dollar every year for 20 years and paying taxes at a rate of 25% would accumulate $72,570. The difference between deferring that taxes and paying taxes annually is a difference of $1,048,000 versus $72,000. That's a $976,000 difference. Not being cognizant of the erosionary impact of taxes on our investments can be huge. Let's look at wealth planning and what we like to call in our group the circle of wealth. This is the heart of what we do for our clients, and we regard this to be at the very heart of wealth planning and wealth building. So if we start off with the circle of wealth, I like to talk about retirement analysis. This is all about understanding an investor, understanding his or her time frame, their retirement income needs, the rate of return that they will need to generate on their investment, marginal tax rate, the rate of inflation that they need to assume. all of the varying factors that they would need in order to do a proper analysis of their readiness for retirement. This is a big part of letting our clients know where they are, where they want to be, and what are some of the steps that they need to be taking in the interim in order to get to their goals, and then have some measuring post along the way to see whether or not they are on track. Tax planning is self-explanatory. As we talk about, every attempt to create wealth has to be combined with an attempt to minimize not only income taxes, but also taxes on our investment. The management of debt, we consider that to be very vital. In fact, one of the things that the message that I often have for clients is, in order to retire well, you need to first retire your debt so that you can be positioned quite well. Now, for our savings, how do we deploy that into investing, into investment in order to create growth? And that successful deployment of your capital to not only preserve it, but to grow it is a very integral part of that wealth planning. And with that also comes the need to manage risk. And when we think of risk management, we think of two forms of risk management. We think of life risk, dealing with some of the uncertainties that will arise from time to time, and making sure that there is proper contingent plan to deal with things, disruption, whether they be illness, injury, anything that can jeopardize the financial plan. And then, of course, when it comes to investment, we like to talk about the capital risk, having some kind of a strategy, a margin of safety, something that undergirds, the investment to offer some level of protection. And then, of course, estate planning. These are the measures that we put in place, to allow for the effective transfer of wealth to one's loved ones and to causes that are important. These are the strategies that are aimed at reducing taxes and probate costs, and also, the strategies to allow for the efficient settlement of an estate. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call the circle of wealth, all of the various aspects that goes into a comprehensive wealth plan. And as we'll see, there are a number of benefits, in addition to the peace of mind, and of course, having a roadmap and measuring points along the way. Various studies have been done, looking at individuals that have a comprehensive wealth plan. And one of those studies talks about being on track with one's financial affairs. And it shows that those with a comprehensive wealth plan, 81% are likely to be on track with their financial affairs, versus only 44% for those without a comprehensive wealth plan. Talks about can deal with the surprises, in life, so what we call the bumps in life. And it shows that those with a comprehensive wealth plan, of those, 65% are able to deal with the surprises that occurs in life, versus 36% of those that do not have a comprehensive wealth plan. Can live today. And that's, important. Everyone, when they think about the future, the overwhelming question that I often get is, what about today? And I says, today is important, because we can't think only about the future. We have to live today. And so those with a comprehensive wealth plan are able to do the things, that are important to them. 74% are able to take things like annual vacation. 61% of those with a plan feel they have enough money to maintain the standard of living that they envision for themselves. And 65% of those with a plan feel that they have money to be able to, do some of the things that they would consider to be luxuries of life. And as you can see, in all the cases, significantly lower percentage of those without a comprehensive wealth plan. But I like to say the final thing is, at the end of the day, those with a wealth plan are able to amass greater wealth. 1.8 times over 4 to 6 years, 2.1 times over 7 to 14, and over 2.3 times more over 15 years or greater. So that is more than enough incentive for everyone to have a comprehensive wealth plan that addresses their needs and objectives. Now, we talk about the successful deployment of one's savings in investment in order to generate growth. But to do that, it requires what I like to call a mindset, a philosophy, some kind of a guiding tenets in terms of how investment decisions are made, the type of things that one should be investing in, and equally important, the type of things that one should avoid. Warren Buffett was one of my role models, say to invest successfully over a lifetime does not require a stratospheric IQ, unusual business insight, or any inside information. According to Warren Buffett, what's needed, number one, is a sound intellectual framework for making decisions. And number two, the ability to keep our emotions from corroding that framework. Every year for the last 25 years, I've gone to Omaha, Nebraska, to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. And invariably, a young enterprising student will get up and ask the question, Mr. Buffett, I want to be as wealthy as you are. How do I do it? And this is the answer that Warren Buffett gives. So let's talk a little bit about our investment confidence. Where does it come from? And our philosophy and mindset. I like to say that our confidence comes from our intellectual framework. And that intellectual framework is one that has been time-tested, proven, and one that has had a strong lineage of success. In order to understand how wealth is created, we like to look at the wealth creators in society. We believe the best way to become good at any endeavor is to identify a role model, those who have achieved great success in that particular arena, study the recipe of that role model, and then implement that recipe faithfully. So for us, the wealth creators are our role models. So how is wealth created? How have the wealth creators in society, managed to create their wealth? So if we look at the wealthiest family in Canada, any guess? If you guess the Thompsons family, then you would be correct. The Thompsons family, are indeed the wealthiest family in Canada. And how have they done it? They've done it by owning a great business, Thomson's Reuters. They've owned this business is domiciled in an industry with strong long-term economic fundamentals, the information technology industry, and they've created permanent value by owning that business for quite some time. Let's look at the second wealthiest family in Canada, the Weston family. The Weston family, like the Thompsons, they own a collection of great businesses, Loblaws, Sears, Provigo, No Frills, the President's Choice brand, Western Bakery. So they own a collection of great business that is also domiciled in an industry with strong long-term economic fundamentals. I mean, after all, food is first call on Oliver Wallet. And they've created permanent value by owning that business for the long term. So there's definitely some commonality in terms of the principles used by the Thompsons family and those used by the Weston family. And if we look at some of the other wealthy family in Canada, the McCain family, for example, they too own a great business, the McCain, brand, growth industry, also in the food industry, and they've too have owned that for the long time. So when we look at three of the wealthy families in Canada, we see that there is a triumvirate of commonality in terms of the underlying principles that are used to create wealth. And so for us, our investment philosophy is built around the ownership of a collection of great businesses. So how do we do this in a fashion that can preserve and grow our clients' capital? We employ what we like to call a margin of safety. And to appreciate that margin of safety, let us take a look at some of the components of our margin of safety. The notion of investing within our circle of competence, the notion of investing only in businesses that are of the very highest quality and industries that have strong long-term economic fundamentals, what we like to call high growth industry. We view growth, a high growth industry, as being like a rising tide. And as the old adage goes, even a leaking ship will rise with the tide. And then we want to be able to buy those excellent businesses at reasonable prices. We want to acquire them cheap, in other words. Ted Williams, the great baseball hitter, in his book, The Science of Hitting, describes a strategy for how he developed this phenomenal batting average. And he talks about swinging at pitches that fell within his strike zone. And for him, his strike zone was a rectangular area that was chest high, torso low, and fell within the frame of his body. And his thought process is, if he swung at those balls, the probability of connecting was very high. And that is how he's been able to develop that batting average. For us, our strike zone falls within where these three concentric circles intersect. So we invest within our circle of competence. We will only invest in things that we understand how they make money. We understand the business characteristics, its fundamentals. We understand the industry and the growth prospect and growth trajectory of that industry. And of course, we want to buy these at reasonable price. So we consider this to be our own strike zone. Now, how do we get these type of great businesses at reasonable prices? We buy them at times when just no one wants to buy them. The interesting thing is that opportunity to buy these great businesses doesn't come with a big banner underneath it that says opportunity. It often comes wrapped up in a crisis. To us, crisis has two components, danger and another opportunity. And for us, that means mitigating the danger, but more importantly, seizing the opportunity. We view market volatility as our friend, not our foe. We've made some of our best investment when fears about major events are at a peak. Fear is the foe of the fattest, but the friend of the fundamentalist. It's not that we like pessimism. We just love the price that it produces. It is optimism that is the enemy of the rational buyer. Now, all of our retirees, when we speak with them, and I will say about half of my clients are retired, we break down their needs into three sectors. If you think of a triangle, at the very base of this triangle is what we like to call core expenses, monies that are needed for things like food, housing, clothing, transportation, taxes, all what we like to call the big six, the core expenses. And so part of our objective is helping our clients to identify those needs in order to determine how much money they will need to meet these core expenses. But no one retires just to be able to pay their core expenses. Everyone has time on their hand and they want to pursue certain lifestyle desires. And that could be traveling or hobbies, different things that are of interest. And this is where most, retirees would be inclined to stop. And I like to call these sustenance. But part of my role as a portfolio manager is to help my clients navigate what I like to call their legacy expenses. We like to look at, how do we assist them with that effective transfer of wealth to the next generation? And more importantly, that with wealth comes a responsibility, and that responsibility to be able to impact causes that are near and dear to their heart. So for us, successful retirement is no longer about just having enough so that one no longer needs to work for a living. For us, it's about a redefinement, helping our clients to redefine their lives. It's about an awakening where our clients can have the finances to fuel their passion and sustain the type of, and not just live a life of sustenance, but rather pursue one of significance. This is where they're having impact on their loved ones, impact on community, and on causes that are important. It is about, at the end of one's lifetime, being able to look back and say, it is a life that was well lived, a life that was filled with passion, filled with purpose, and a life of significance and ultimate legacy. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Now we will open up to questions.
Wow. Thank you so much, Don. Thank you. That was a wealth of information, and you've left on such a high note about, having significance, a life of significance. Thank you so much for taking the time to host today's webinar and for sharing some key wealth planning strategies. Like you said, we all work hard for our money, and we appreciate learning more ways to rise with the tides, like you said. And with that circle of wealth overview that you provide your clients, you really shared some powerful incentives for each of us to create a comprehensive wealth plan while doing our best to avoid those impediments of inflation and taxation, while certainly ensuring that our legacy plans enable us to support the people and causes that are near and dear to our hearts. So thank you so much. At this time, yes, at this time, we can open up the floor to our audience members for any questions that they may have. So I'll remind our guests that if you have a question, feel free to type in your question in the Q&A. And I see here we do have a first question. Okay, so this question says, I'm recently retired and have saved a decent amount to live comfortably, but feeling worried about the future when I see the poor returns in my investment portfolio. Do you have any advice for me?
Well, first of all, congratulations on saving for retirement and achieving that goal. In terms of feeling worried when one sees the type of returns as we are currently experiencing in the marketplace, I would say it goes back to the strategy and the whole concept of having a margin of safety. As a retiree, there are two components, or should be two components to your investment strategy. One component is based on income, and that income should not be dependent upon market performance. And then the second component, which is more longer term, is growth. So there should be a two-part strategy of income and also on growth. And so your day-to-day income needs should not be impacted by market fluctuations. If there is, in fact, a strategy that is addressing immediate income within your portfolio, then it gives you that peace of mind of being able to ignore market worries long enough to allow the great businesses that you own in your portfolio to be able to grow in time. So I like to say the simple answer to that is having a two-part strategy. One where you're being paid while you wait for those growth, and it is that being paid that will sustain your retirement income needs.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you. And I guess we can stop sharing the screen there, and we can have a one-on-one conversation here. There we go.
Yes.
All right, let me look. We have a second question. All right, so this one looks like a question about percentages. So I guess with mortgage rates and cost of living on the rise, when it comes to budgeting, in terms of ballpark estimates, what percentage of my take-home salary should I be allocating towards A, mortgage debt repayment, B, basic daily needs and living expenses, C, saving and investing, and then a D bucket of splurges of fun stuff like entertainment or travel?
So an easy way of looking at this is I look at for every dollar that we make, we're probably going to pay approximately 40% in taxes. So let's assume for every dollar that you make, you will have 60 cents left over. So part of the whole, how much should be set aside to deal with debt repayment? Let's understand, first of all, how your creditor, the banks, what requirement will they have? And most banks will have what is called a total debt service ratio, TDS, as it's commonly referred to, of approximately 35% of your gross income. So that means for every dollar that you make, the repayment of your debt shouldn't consume more than 35 cents. And so if 35 cents of your dollar is going to be addressing debt, then that leaves you with approximately, and 40% is going to be 40 cents is going to go to taxes. That leaves you with approximately 25%. And of that 25%, a nice number that we like to save for clients is, in terms of saving for the future, we like to put that approximately 10%. If you're saving 10% of your income, which is what we like to call that you're paying yourself first, then that would be a great rule of thumb. And that leaves 15% to be able to meet your other expenses outside of debt repayment, such as food, travel, and other living needs that you will have. So if that rule of thumb of every dollar, 40 cents to the government, 35 for debt repayment, 10 for future savings, leaving 15 to be able to carry out the rest of your lives, then you will be in great shape.
Very good. I'll have to take a look at my own finances to see if I'm following that. Our next question from the audience is as follows. I was wondering, what are the best places to read up on investment strategies and best investments? I am a young woman hoping to build wealth over time. Thank you.
There are a number of books that I can recommend. There are a couple of great books. I normally start off with an old one, called The Wealthy Barber. I haven't read it in a long time, but it goes back to the concept of setting aside a portion of what you earn, towards your long-term, savings. There's The Wealthy Barber. There's another one, The Richest Man in Babylon, and that's also a very interesting read. I gave that to my daughters at an early age, so that they understand the concept that a part of what they earn is theirs to keep and should be set aside. And so any books that that can help with that discipline of saving, because that is one of the skill that is needed. We can only invest what we have saved. And so anything that helps with that discipline of setting money aside is a great place to start.
Absolutely. Thank you for those recommendations. Another question from our audience. For those planning to retire during this decade, is it worth getting involved in the stock market, as now is a volatile period on the market, thus cheaper stock prices? Or should those planning to retire this decade stay away from investing in stocks?
I would say that if we go back to the example that I use of the power of inflation and the fact that inflation does dictate that we need to achieve a certain growth rate on our money in order to keep up, with the cost of living, in order to maintain the purchasing power. I would say that it is of paramount importance to invest in the stock market. However, in investing in the stock market, one has to have a two-part strategy, as I talked about, a clear strategy in terms of income, being produced on your investment. I like to put it, in a very simplistic way. I had a farmer once, come to see me, and we were talking about, as we looked at, their investment. It was an investment strategy that was built purely on growth. And when we looked at it, we said, well, part of the problem with this strategy is that in order for you to generate income, you're going to have to be selling parts of your investment, and you could be selling at the most inopportune time because you need income every month. So we need to address both your short-term need for income by creating a portfolio that generates income, but we also have to address the long-term need for growth, in order to do that. And so it was that transformation of having that portfolio doing both, generating income that is not dependent upon the stock market, while at the same time getting growth. And at the end of my illustration, the farmer looked at me and say, okay, let me put it in simple farm terms. What you're saying to me is that I can't just have a beef cattle. I need to have a dairy cattle and a beef cattle, one that is producing income and one that is growth. And I said, exactly, you've nailed it. And so it is that, dual approach that I would say. In terms of the volatility, I look at it that if you've got a proper asset allocation strategy, then this would be a time that you're taking advantage of buying some fantastic companies at great prices. But it all comes back down to the strategy, in terms as to how your investment are being allocated. The investment decisions are key.
Excellent advice. I like that example about the farmer and his strategy. Thank you for sharing. Well, it looks like we don't have any further questions from our audience members live, but I would like to ask you, do you have any final words of wisdom or advice that you'd like to share as we conclude today's webinar?
Definitely. I will say that, the final word of advice that I would like to share is a couple of things. Number one, if someone is uncertain about where they stand, get an analysis, get a retirement readiness, because one of the things that we often see is that most individuals who are retired within the first decade of retirement, they feel that they do not have enough in order to continue with their lifestyle, and they have to pursue part-time employment and so forth. They're starting to get worried. If one has a proper retirement analysis, then one would be able to appreciate and get a sense and get the peace of mind knowing that you're well positioned even during times of turbulent market. And so that would be the first order that I would say. And then the second, parting words would be, of course, having the right mindset. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Fabulous. Well said. Well, thank you to our audience members. Thank you so much again to Dawn, our speaker, for sharing your wisdom. I hope that the information and tips that Dawn shared with us today will be helpful to you in your planning. To all of our audience members, if you'd like to explore any of these options or ideas further, I encourage you to reach out to Dawn or speak with your own financial, wealth, tax, or legal advisors to see if any of the ideas that Dawn presented would be applicable in your own unique situation. So thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing your wills and wealth wisdom with us today. It was a wonderful conversation and a pleasure to have you join us. For those of you who may be interested, thanks. And next, for those of you who may be interested in learning more about this area, there will be one more event as part of our special life skills series. Our next Wills and Wealth webinar is taking place next week on Wednesday, November 30th at 12 noon. And it's titled Wills and Estate Planning Tips and Traps with Estates Litigator Rebecca Studin. The link to register for the event will be shared with you in our chat. So feel free to click on it if you haven't registered and you may be interested. And then also you can learn more about this event or any additional legacy information at myyorklegacy.com. Thank you so much, Dawn, for being with us here today. We hope that you all enjoyed today's event, and I wish you all a great day.